Good morning to you on this 10th day of April. It is Thursday, and we are sitting here in Johannesburg, and it's a warm morning after a number of mornings of inclement weather. So we are thankful as we rise to the sunshine. Faith, faith, faith. What is it? As our faces differ, you will get as many definitions that differ one from another. But few can talk through what faith is in a concrete, real life kind of way. It's always explained away into abstraction and oblivion. But I'd like to suggest this morning that faith is maintaining continuity of contact with that for which you ultimately care. I repeat that. Faith is maintaining continuity of contact with that for which you ultimately care. And you ultimately care as a believer about God, who He is, how He operates, and how He conducts matters in His world. And maintaining that contact through life and lip, uh, maintaining that contact through my total being, mind, will, and emotions, get drawn into it. We are in Hebrews chapter 11, which has been called the honor roll of faith. And when we look at these 31 verses, we are reminded very deeply. Well, actually, it's 39 verses and up to verse number 40 verses. The writer is tracking through a number of persons, a number of people, and using them as examples of what faith looked like across history. People and events drawn from biblical history stand as examples for us. Now, why is this so important? Because believing Christ, believing loyalty, as Michael Heiser calls it, I like to call it loyal allegiance. You have sworn and made a pledge of allegiance to the cross. I live like it. It's an oath of allegiance that gets lived out in the real world, the workaday world, the home world, the play world. And so believers are to stick with believing, because the singular thing that will happen when you stop believing is you will make shipwreck of your faith, because faith is not a work. Faith is coming to that deep persuasion. It's the embodiment of faithfulness, reliability, and trust in that which is the object of your faith. But it is embodied in you in terms of faithfulness, reliability, and trust. It's not this nebulous thing that you can't quantify, and this thing which has no evidentiary base. To talk about blind faith is really one of the biggest untruths. Faith is grounded in deep in reality. And for us as followers of the way, it's a biblical reality, because the scriptures gives us a slice of what is ultimately and deeply real. And the scriptures has been given to orient our minds, to orient our lives to reality, so that we can move in fidelity to the flow of reality. Now, look at some of the examples of men. We're going to look at the first three, because the first three are part of events and personages that are drawn from the scriptures in a chronological order, going from Genesis 1 all the way to the book of Joshua, verse 20 of chapter 6 in particular. So these verses across the storyline of 11:3 to 31 tracks the first three. And then it continues. So what are the first three people that are in view, that stand as examples of faithfulness? If faith is embodied, faithfulness, reliability, and trust in God. Then let's look at the first example. First example is Abel. The second example is Enoch. And the third example is Noah. In that order: Abel, Enoch, Noah. And the Christian Hebrew readers are to recognize those who acted upon God's promises, even though fulfillment was not in sight. They were so far removed from the fulfillment of what they were looking for, but that becomes the standard of persevering faith, of enduring faith. Because remember, faith carries an endurance element to it. You need to keep on believing. Yes, you trust Christ once and for all. So you become a believer. But now you continue to walk by faith and not by sight. You are saved by grace through faith, and you are kept by grace through faith. And no work is big enough. No sin is great enough to separate you from the love of God. But there is, listen carefully, there is one thing that will separate you. It will cut you down and cut you off. It's faithlessness. It's a rejection of the person and work of Christ. It's a rejection of the saving work of Calvary. And when you get to a point where you say, I no longer believe this and such, I don't trust Christ anymore. That is what defection is about. Making shipwreck of your faith. And the consequences are dire. Oh, but you say, don't you believe in OSAS? Once saved, always saved. Well, I think the very way that question is framed, the wrong framing is used. The correct framing, or more apropos framing, would be, what does it cost you to get to the finishing line? It will cost you enduring faith, trust, because what cannot be gained by moral perfection cannot be lost by immoral imperfection. No sin can separate you. But stopping in unbelief, I can no longer trust God. He's no longer a worthy object of faith. You are trampling underfoot the blood of Christ. How will you escape? So Abel, he offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain, through which he was commended as righteous, God commending him by accepting his gifts. And through his faith, though he died, he still speaks. How does he speak? That it's worth it to trust God even when you stand and you run the risk of getting slaughtered. He still speaks. Second person, by faith, Enoch was taken up so that he should not see death, and was not found because God had taken him. It's one of the 7 instances in the New Testament that talk of, in the Old Testament as well, translation. Somebody taken up, taken away out of the land of the living. Enoch is the first one. Another person you can think of course, is Elijah. Gets swept away into glory by a chariot of fire. And here's Enoch. He was not found because God had taken him. Now, before he was taken, he was approved. He was commended. How was he commended? As having pleased God. Can you please God? Yes, you can. How? By trusting him, by believing in him. He was commended. Then the text stops and it makes a comment about Enoch's faith. Without faith, it is impossible to please him. Who is him? The antecedent is God. Faith is necessary to please God. And so the writer explains here not only the importance of faith, but that faith has payouts. It pleases God, and the one who draws near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. So those who draw near and those who seek him are rewarded. For the one who approaches God to believe that he exists and becomes a rewarder of those who seek him out are those who get the payout. So that's Abel and then Enoch. And now let's look at not Dr. Noah, but Brother Noah. By faith, Noah, being warned by God concerning events as yet unseen. What did Noah not see? He had never seen rain in his life. Because there was a capsule, a layer, a band around the earth in Genesis 1, which watered the earth. But there was no rain up until Noah builds a boat. Nobody ever built a boat and constructed a huge boat that was about 2 to 3 American football fields in length. It says, in reverent fear he constructed an ark for the saving of his household. Hadn't seen rain, hadn't seen a boat that he was to construct, and he hadn't seen destruction by flood. But it says by this building of a boat and being aware of God's warning about events not seen. It says, by this he condemned the world. Who? Noah. Not God, Noah. He condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness that comes by faith. So he takes a step of faith based upon what God had said. And now he does something. Because faith can get you to do very, very creative things, can impact you because you see stuff, you see things. By this he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness that comes by faith. So the writer affirms that by faith Noah constructed this boat and condemned humanity and became an heir. He built a boat, he damned mankind, and he inherited righteousness because he took the risk, and only 8 of them were saved out of the multitudes that existed upon the face of the earth. So here are 3 examples of men who embodied faith. Don't fret about faith, F-R-E-T, because faith is embodied, the E in the word fret. How it is embodied? Through faithfulness, reliability, and trust. Faith is the continuity of contact that you maintain with that for which you ultimately care. You ultimately care about God, who he is, what he does, and how he operates. And that's where your allegiance is. Your loyal allegiance is in God. And so this morning, when you look at the outcomes of faith, what makes the payouts of faith with it? Well, it's because of the one who stands behind those promises, God. Nothing short of God. What do you need to be embodying this morning in terms of faithfulness, reliability, and trust in God? You need to be trusting God for your kids, trusting God for your husband to come to saving faith, trusting God as we go toward this high day called the Easter weekend in our calendar. What are some of the things that you are becoming mindful of that can be a faith booster for you? Or maybe it's just so dark in the world that you are living, you can't see straight. Well, here's an opportunity this morning. Abel, Enoch, Noah, they trusted God even though they did not, in some cases, see the fulfillment of what God had promised. They still trusted Him. Will you do that this morning? Whatever you need to trust God for. I trust you to have a good day as you go with God. Goodbye for now.